Good evening. The time is now 6:07 PM. And I would like to call the Community Advisory Committee meeting for today, Monday, March 16th, 2026. Order. We are located at Ava's headquarters at 1999 Harrison Street, Suite 2300, Oakland, California. And then we're in the boardroom. Members of the public wishing to make a comment can do so by either raising their hand function in the Zoom or using *9 if you're joining through telephone. And
Or they
clerk,
raise hand, or they can come up to do roll first,
say again.
or they can fill out a speaker slip.
Oh, or, that's right, they can fill out a speaker slip. Thank you. Do we have quorum?
I guess we do. We can do roll call.
Okay, quorum has been established.
Roll call.
Oh,
Let's-
so we'll let him-
Okay.
oh, that's right, roll call. Can we take a roll call? Thank you.
Member Landry,
Present.
Member Weiner. Present. Member Stevenson,
Present.
Member Swaminathan,
Present.
Member Lockman,
I'm here.
Member Hernandez.
Present.
Thank you. Member Pacheco. Present. Ah, there you are. Wow. Thank you. Member Harper. Member Harper.
Present. Sorry.
Member Lutz.
Present.
Vice Chair Bakusin.
Present.
Chair Souza.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, we will now move on to the next item, and that is public comment. This is reserved for members of the public wishing to give a comment on non-agenda items. Members of the public will have 3 minutes to give their comment. Are there any members of the public who would like to give a comment to start? Seeing none?
No, there are no hands raised at this time.
Thank you. And we'll move on now to the approval of the minutes. And next, the items, we need to approve the minutes from February, was it
17.
2026? Are there any questions or comments or corrections that we would like to make to the minutes?
The AI spells my name wrong.
Oh, but that's the AI, isn't it?
No,
I move we approve the minutes.
Uh-oh. Okay, well, we'll clear that up for the next set of minutes. Are there any public comments for minutes?
We need a second
I'll second.
Thank you.
and public comment.
Okay, and now, are there any public comments regarding the minutes? Seeing none,
No hands raised at this time.
we'll take a,
Great, thank you very much. Member Landry,
Yes.
Member Weiner,
yes,
Member Stevenson,
Yes.
Member Swaminathan,
Yes.
Member Lockman,
Yes.
Member Hernandez,
Present, yes.
Member Pacheco. Member Harper,
Yes.
Member Lutz,
yes,
Vice Chair Buxton,
Aye.
Chair Souza.
aye.
The minutes are approved.
Thank you, clerk. This time, we will move on to the first agenda, or the first C5, which is the California Legislative Position recommendations, which is,
I think it's the
Oh,
CAC chair
thank
report.
you. Forgive me, the chair report. Ed's making me nervous. It's all his fault.
What I do, I'm just hanging back here. Literally not in the room to make it more calm.
It's your fault. All right. I'll give the chair report for the Board of Directors meetings on February 19th. The meeting opened with a budget update from CEO Howard Chang regarding the volatility of energy prices. As you know, we had some budgetary projections. There was another budgetary projection, which resulted in still the need for the remedy of the Gas B Reserve Fund. But the deficit was less, which is good news. And it improved from January to June, which is a 6-month period, from 1.33.7 million, which was the December 2025 projection, to a more optimistic minus 94.2 million. And the change is primarily due to higher PG&E rates than was originally projected. Some observations were made regarding the larger remainder of the Gas B Fund and the cuts that we made to ward off the deficit. And we would like to wait a year or there was no decision made, but there was a suggestion making to wait a year to further pad the bottom line. So our CAC report was provided, and we made a request of the board to ask or to consider with staff the no harm policy update. That was suggested over the last couple of months, which was the no harm policy to be added into our EVA's decision making. Ariel presented a large load presentation, which involved AI, and it was very well received. Questions were asked about potential best practices, tariffs, and zoning off of a grid for data centers. Ava is willing to help with planning for the members of the board who are part of the city government, rate setting, potential tariffs, and large load rates, and other customer rate protection planning. There was significant interest in DERMS, which is the application for controlling energy demand, and the solar battery program. It's of note that the VPP grid is not for emergency backup power. The virtual power grid is not for emergency backup power, but rather just to adjust loads during grid exceptions. The board was impressed with Ava's email release. I saw it after, by the way, and it was very good. And its powerful, succinct message to customers. What it emphasized was that Ava is a nonprofit, offsets PG&E tax rate hikes to distribution, and highlighted its commitment to transparency. So if you get a chance, take a look at the email from Ava that was, I think, about 3 weeks ago. It was when I received it in my email. And that is the truth. Now moving on to item, or should I have, are there any public comments online? Any comments in the room about the minutes? Any questions?
Ed has his hand raised.
Okay. I don't see a hand raised. Oh, there's a hand raised. Ed.
Thank you, Chair. Just a better understanding of the budget for the upcoming year. I think I heard you say that it wasn't as high as expected, but one of the board actions was to remove the Care and Fair customer credits from one of the last meetings I attended as the chair. Is that changing, or is that going to be revisited later this year? Is there any update on that?
There was some discussion from the board around that. some members did express some interest. And as I said, the others said that we should, that Ava should perhaps wait to pad the budget a little more. So it was a discussion. And so this was the first we heard of it, or anybody had heard of it. And I think they're waiting to see in the next cycle, maybe in perhaps another 6 months or the next 6 month cycle projection, whether or not this trend will continue with PG&E and its rates. And there's other things, of course, that affect Ava's rates. We follow PG&E's rates. So if we follow their rates, if the rates go up or the rates go down according to what PG&E is charging, then we'll see some changes, further changes. There was a projection for the following 6 months from July to December, which was showed even better or smaller deficits. So I think it remains to be seen.
So thank you. So I think I heard you say that you have to wait for the 6 month projection, which there might be another look in June. So it'd be nice to see where that's at. I would be off this committee by then for sure. The other element would be also if there's been any other discussions around the grant program. I think member Igor Tregu was going to maybe lead that effort with staff. I'm not sure there's more of that dialogue occurring in the last couple of months.
I don't remember seeing Igor there at the last meeting. May not have, he definitely wasn't in the room, and I think he might have missed it.
He was not.
Yeah, he was not at the meeting. So
I guess
yeah,
was
he
that being
didn't-
picked up again or not? Yeah, so just wondering about that.
Yeah, he didn't weigh in, but we'll definitely put it on our radar to see if some of the relief can be given for rates in the future.
Well, through the chair, and I don't know, Katie, if you have any information or update on the program. I think it was going to be an AVA grant program they were exploring. So I don't know, that's something that staff is still working through, if I may, Chair.
Yeah. Chair Souza,
Yes.
I can respond to that real
Please
quick.
do.
I think the latest update on that process is that Ava held a community workshop to discuss how the grants would look. And I don't know that was in very late January, and I'm not sure when the next update will be provided on that, but that is very actively in the works, and there will probably be updates to the CEC soon.
Great. Thank you very much. I know you're also working through Resilient Hub, so thank you for doing that work, and thank you, everybody else. I appreciate my time for the comments to follow up on your report. Thank you.
Definitely keep us on track, Ed.
Thank you.
Are there any further comments? Seeing none, we'll move to the C5, item C5, which is the California Legislative Position Recommendations. And this is an action item for the board.
Chair, call for public comment, please. So one more public comment for your chair report.
For my chair, can I ask?
The comments, I wasn't sure if that was for the.
Is there any public comment for my chair report?
Is there no hands raised?
Very good. Can we move now? All right, we'll take the 2026 California Legislative Position Recommendations, which I so desperately want to see.
Thank you, Chair Souza, and thank you to the CAC and my colleagues for the opportunity to present this evening. My name is Sam Sadel, and I lead our legislative work here at Ava Community Energy. We're gonna sit here, if that's okay with you all. We're gonna do some passing back and forth, and so it's easier than moving amongst the podium if that works for everybody. This first presentation, however, will be mine and mine alone. We're starting this, the next presentation we'll get into in a moment is the broader legislative landscape in Sacramento. This, on the other hand, is focused directly on the two bills that CalCCA is sponsoring in this legislative session. These are major bills that address significant issues of importance to the agency. And so we're going to start with them. We'll complete that process, and then we'll move to we'll finish that item and then move to a separate item that is the broader legislative preview for the year. All right, thank you. Next slide.
Thank you.
So first, we'll start with a bit of background on the power charge indifference adjustment, PCIA, which of course we have all been hearing a lot about over the last weeks and months here at the agency. Just a little bit of background for you here. In late February 2025, the PUC staff asserted that the RA market price benchmarks that feed into the PCIA were flawed and needed a speedy remedy. That then led to 2 months, March and April, of the PUC internally trying to figure out what they were going to do with it. In May, staff proposed a new series of RA MPDs, resource adequacy market price benchmarks, for the PCIA. A lot of acronyms, my apologies. And in June, the CPUC adopted these. This is what we've been grappling with for the past 10 months at this point, is how this process will impact what is going on. And we're not here today to talk about the actual PCIA, but what we are talking about is a lack of transparency in the PCIA process. When AVA first learned about this process in February, we submitted a Public Records Act request, and the CPUC has refused to share the information used that went into the analysis that they made the determination to change the market price benchmarks. In fact, this case has been delayed 17 times, and we still have never seen the information. And without that, we cannot forecast forthcoming changes in the PCIA to adequately prepare for ratepayer impacts moving forward. And that's fundamentally why we are here and why we are asking for the board's support in this legislative proposal. Next slide. So we've been working on this for the last few months, and this is the PCI legislative action that CalCCA is sponsoring and that we are asking the board to support. I've posted the official summary for you, but I'd like you to look at I've underlined a few sections that I'll briefly talk about. First, it would require the release of data underlying any proposal or analysis that would require that this data be shared and that this data be provided if this data is submitted by an IOU, the PUC, its staff, or another party. It would require this data be released that informs any charge imposed on LSE customers to recover the cost of the contracts. And it would require that this data be made available to any load-serving entity like AVA or ratepayer advocates. And finally, it would not require market-sensitive data to be shared directly with the LSE, but instead it would be filtered through a third party to ensure that there are no competitiveness impacts. That's what the bill does. It says, show your work. How did this information come out, and so that we can better understand where this information came from, analyze it, and use it to look forward to better plan for agency priorities in the future. So why does this matter? It allows this team to do that, to review the data, ensure it's correct, and better plan for future action. Who supports this bill? CalCCA obviously is sponsoring it. RCRC, which is the Rural County Association of California, as well as the League of Cities. And then, of course, the California Association of Counties. Those are the four icons you see in the left there. Who's opposing it? Well, Southern California Edison and San Diego Gas and Electric are the two on board as opposing it. Edison, in its opposition letter, says, you don't need this information. You already receive it. There's a process for you to get it. But if you don't have it, it's confidential, so we can't share it. San Diego Gas and Electric on the other side says we can't do this because it would be too expensive and too burdensome for us to comply. So it's either we don't have the data and it's hard for us to get it, or you already have the data and you don't need it. These are contradictory approaches.
And they're all like the same company.
So as we're asking the board to support AB 1761, from Assemblymember Rogers, who I should note is a former board member of Sonoma Clean Power and former local elected official, which we're very pleased with. And we'll be asking our board to support it as well. That is the PCI legislative action piece. I'm going to jump to RA transact. Next slide, please. So that's PCIA, one thing we've been talking about a lot. I'm now going to move to RA transactability. In 2025, the PUC completed a 3-year process of transitioning from the previous RA compliance regime, which was a monthly RA compliance regime, to the hourly compliance regime. So it's shifting the compliance regimes in how much resource adequacy we are required to prove that we have purchased in order to be in compliance with state obligations. So while we had raised the issue at the very beginning in 2022 of this transactability, of this compliance mismatch, right? You're moving to hourly transactability, hourly compliance, but you can only transact in monthly tranches. This issue was not addressed. The CPUC failed to act and left us with a mismatch that we have today. So again, you have to comply on an hourly basis, but you can only purchase RA on a monthly basis. What this means is that LSEs are forced to over-comply and essentially buy more RA than is needed to satisfy the state's demands at a cost of roughly $180 million per year. So these are direct ratepayer impacts of additional costs. Now, $180 million is spread over all the LSEs, so obviously that does not mean $180 million at AVA, but every penny helps. So in fact, earlier this year, the CPUC acknowledged that allowing transactability would save customers money, but it wasn't yet ready to allow it, but it wasn't yet ready to make that step. And so this is us, we're saying, wait a second, okay, it's time to do this. CalCCA last year pushed this as a legislative add-on to other pieces of legislation that were moving through the legislative process. They were unfortunately unsuccessful at getting it appended as a piece of a larger bill. And so this year, we're coming back with a standalone bill that can either move forward on its own or can be looped into and combined with another bill later in the legislative process. Next slide. So this is the bill. It's SB 1138. And what it would do is require CPUC to allow LSEs to transact RA obligations. Those transacted obligations must make up no more than 25% of the LSE's RA portfolio. And they must make those, but here's the key line, they must be able to make those transactions in the same unit and time as the compliance obligation. So it's saying, okay, we can transact, we want to be able to transact in the same unit that you're going to be holding us to for compliance obligations. This is supported by CalCCA, obviously it's sponsored by CalCCA. We are still working to get third parties on board, but the truth is this is really technical. And so we're having to move people pretty far up the information curve. We've had no opposition so far, including from the IOUs. And we'll be bringing a recommendation on Wednesday that the board officially support this bill. And the reason we're asking to support the board to support these two bills earlier in the legislative process is we want to be able to leverage the team here at AVA, as well as leveraging all of our partners to push hard and ensure that both of these bills advance in 2026. That's it for my initial presentation.
Thank you very much, Sam. Very, very important bills. At this point, do we have any questions? Do we have any questions? Yes, go ahead, Ernie.
Excellent presentation, very, very clear. So at the CPUC, they denied the data 17 times, or they denied a hearing 17 times, and is that normal?
So-
Seems like a, yeah.
Yeah, so we have requested under a Public Records Act request. They have 10 business days to reply. They initially got back to us the day of and said, we'll get back to you in 31 days. But once they tell us, they say, okay, they'll tell us how long they will to get back to us. They said 31 days. That was the initial response. Since then, they have delayed that 17 times. We're over 400 days and counting.
So the CPUC is a weird beast, but isn't that unusual? Isn't that like a large amount of, or, I mean, yeah, in your experience, but
I can't speak directly because I'm not a CPUC expert, but that would be deemed outside the normal amount of time. They've said they have about 10,000 documents that they can provide, might eventually be able to provide. And frankly, they respond to these types of requests all the time. So yeah, it's taken a long time and we still haven't heard back.
And a follow-up question, I mean, we are an energy agency, so I would imagine our requests understand confidential information, and we were not asking for confidential information?
So this process is already ongoing. We are asking for non-confidential information. That is correct. There is a process, as I mentioned, for confidential information to be shared under the guise of a third party. But we are asking, when we made the request, we explicitly pulled off and said, okay, we want the non-confidential information.
And sorry, last question on this. So do you feel that the CPU staff or what do you feel the CPUC's position on this bill is?
Well, the agency is not taking a position on the bill. I mean, the Public Utilities Commission is not taking a position on the bill, and I unfortunately, I can't speculate as to what they would do.
Okay, thank you.
Jim?
Several questions on the PCIA review and openness. Who decides who the third party is that's going to do the analysis?
So we've proposed a third party, and then we'll work with the PUC to have that third party. There will be a third party for CCAs. There'll be a third party for, if it were to be brought in, a third party for direct access as well. And so it's an ongoing sort of back and forth, but we feel confident that we have a third party that would do a good job.
Okay. And a way to make sure that if this bill passes, you'd get that.
Exactly.
The one.
Now, of course, their job would be to filter out any information that is market sensitive and not.
Right, right. I know the governor has vetoed things not similar to this, but is there any contact with his office to see what his reaction would be on this? Try not to get it to.
So I'm going to try not get ahead of myself here, remember let's, but yes, there has been conversation with the governor's team.
Okay, and then on the RA slice of day, how much of Ava's procurement budget or resources go to RA and auxiliary services? I know the bulk actually goes to the kilowatt hours and the megawatt hours, but how much goes to the other services? And how much, and those are like the RA is mandated by the PUC, I believe.
Yeah, unfortunately, I can't speak to that. I can work with my colleagues and get something, but that is all part of the public board, the board disclosures, I'm sure. So but I can't speak to it. I'm sorry.
Was the question specific to RA or how much does Ava?
Well, no, the question is how big of an impact on Ava's budget is this?
So it's less than 1/3 of our procurement.
Less than 1/3 of what?
Less than 1/3 of the agency's procurement
But-
is for RA.
But that's a lot. That's a lot.
I leave that to you.
And then there's other auxiliary services too. Okay. I'm just trying to get a sense of.
Sense of scale.
Yeah.
Understood.
Those are my questions.
Great. Oh, we have a question from Davis.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I had just a follow-up question on the PCIA related bill. It seems like a no-brainer, getting data that CCAs should already be entitled to and having an independent third-party review that's looking at how these calculations are being made. And I was just wondering if you're anticipating any bills more specific to influencing how the PCIA is calculated or any other attempts that have been in the past around allocating like product attributes from legacy renewable energy contracts so that what CCAs are paying into for dated solar contracts from the IOU that we actually get we meet an RPS target with those like legacy contracts. So it seems like this issue has just gotten worse over the last several years. But so I was just trying to understand, like, in addition to this, like, data focused bill, are you foreseeing PCA as another hot item in other bills too this year?
Member Harper, thanks for the question. At this point, legislation is limited just to data sharing amongst, regarding the inputs into the PCIA and other ongoing processes.
Yes, I would imagine this might be a first step. And should there be any discrepancies or red flags, then this would hopefully reveal them.
Well, if there are discrepancies or red flags, there's already an existing methodology, existing process to address those. We have in other non-PCIA places where we do get more data, we have addressed, CalCCA and others have identified hundreds of millions of dollars of errors, usually mistakes that have been addressed. We don't have access and visibility into the PCIA piece of it, but there is a process if these things are discovered.
But you need to know them first.
That's correct.
Right. Oh, Peter.
I really appreciated the report. Is it too early to move that we support these bills? That we approve the report? Is it approve the report or we support the bills?
Well, let's go through the questions first because I've got some questions too.
All right.
And a few other people, but yes, this is very exciting for us. And Cynthia.
Yes, I'd like to understand more about the transactions that are going to be allowed under the Senate Bill 1138. And right now, I guess it's purchased on a monthly basis.
That's correct.
And this bill would enable CCAs, I guess, to transact among themselves. And would that be on a daily basis?
So it's currently, this will allow all LSEs, not just
Right.
CCAs, and it would allow them to transact on whatever the level of compliance required is. So if they currently they're requiring hourly compliance, it would allow us to transact on an hourly basis. If they move to per minute compliance, it would continue. That's what the idea is, that you match the transactability to the compliance obligation.
Okay, so obviously, they would be able to request what they actually need and not over purchase or
So and I should be clear, we're talking about load obligation, not resource adequacy. So it's a slightly different nuance, but we purchase the product, RA as a product in the market, and then this would allow us to transact on a specified level that matches the compliance obligation. So you purchase, a month's worth, but you can then sell back and forth between LSEs on an hourly basis.
Thank you for making that clear.
And I'm sorry, I have to note, we are approaching the sort of peak of my knowledge of this. My colleague John is on the line if we get into technical questions. I'm merely the ledge guy and John's on the radio.
no, but that's it's clearer for me. Thank you.
Indira.
I just have a question about Cal CCA. So are all of the LSEs on board with this, or how do you decide which bills to go after or what issues rise to the top?
Totally fair. So we had an ongoing process. It began as soon as the legislative session finished last year. And we floated ideas as to what kind of bills we wanted to push. I think, obviously RA transactability was one of them, PCIA was one of them. There was an iterative process. And we worked, there are 25 CCAs, 24 are a member of Cal CCA. We worked within those 24 to come up with what bills we thought would have the most impact and have the highest likelihood of success. And there was a lot of workshopping, honestly, back and forth between the various CCAs around the state. And these were the two proposals that we all sort of coalesced around, and then we had a vote. It was put up before the board and the internal Cal CCA processes. And then now that we were able to get the bills actually introduced, that's why it's coming back to us to say, do we want to support this? And how do we support this?
I think it's great that you have that kind of relationship going on with LCCA. I mean, working together with them.
Oh, Ernie.
So that stirs or stimulates a question for me. Sam, I'm sorry, I forget how long you've been with the agency?
I guess a year in 2 weeks.
Okay, right on that. Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Belated anniversary. Question, what's your kind of take to, as much as you feel comfortable saying, for Ava running its own bill? Where Cal CCA maybe does not consider agency's opinion rising up to where they want to run a bill. Has that happened? Have you seen that kind of discourse, or do you feel that the Ava board is basically, well, also comes from staff, are just kind of following in with Cal CCA? I know we're part of the Cal CCA deliberative process, but I guess, can you speak a little bit on whether or not our agency feels comfortable running a bill at times not with Cal CCA?
Well, I can only tell you from in the last year that I've been here. We have a very strong working relationship with Cal CCA. We're very pleased that these two bills are running. I think we were strong advocates to do something, and we're very pleased with that. There are other CCAs that do run bills outside of the Cal CCA process. I think we've seen there are a couple that will be floated around. I don't want to speak out of turn. I'm not sure if they've fully been fleshed out, but there are going to be multiple bills that are pushing. Actually, I know Sonoma Clean Power is running a couple of bills this session. There may be others. So it does happen, and it happens, I'd say most years. There's a bill or two floating out by a CCA that is now Cal CCA can, once a bill gets pushed by an agency, Cal CCA could adopt to come on board, which is also happens. So it is a bit of a chicken and egg question. I think we would feel comfortable, but right now we're very pleased that these are the two things. These are our top two legislative priorities. And so we're pleased that Cal CCA is running them, because at core, we can only do so much. We're a team of 3 here on the legislative team for AVA. But when we bring in all 24 of the Cal CCA members and all of their power, it's a much stronger.
Thank you. No, absolutely. But I know that like MCE and some other CCAs have run many bills. I don't remember us running a bill solo before. And an issue, and there's a reason why I'm asking this, is Cal CCA may not always want to run a bill that maybe the AVA board is convinced or determines that they want to run. I'm just kind of trying to check your temperature on that. Should there be a bill like HR 3546 Morgan on data center, and if Cal CCA doesn't want to handle that this year or next, I'm just kind of getting a temperature check on what do you think AVA institutionally, the staff and the board have for writing and running it.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate it. Thank you for the guidance. I think at core, we feel that we're able to get what we're hoping for this session from the Cal CCA process, but we of course reserve the right to do other things.
Thank you.
Very enlightening. Thank you. We don't have any more questions except for mine. The first question I have is if this bill passes, will this be retroactive to when the PCA decisions were made? So the discussion, the bill, from what I understand, is to be able to see the transparency into how decisions are made. But we're specific to the TCIA. Are we also going to have that information? Will that bring it out for us?
So No, the bill's not retroactive. It would come in if it were to be successful and signed by the governor, the bills usually come into place in January 1 of next year.
All right, and I guess my second question is, if you were to, this is on SB 1138, which time period would be preferable for Ava? Would it be on the monthly basis or the hourly basis for the resource adequacy?
Well, it's current, the reason we would want it on the hourly basis is because that's what the compliance
Right.
requirement is. So we want the transactability to match the compliance requirements.
Makes sense. Okay, so either way. Great. Well, that's it. Now, I would like to pose the question, and can we have anybody for supporting this?
Make a motion.
I move we support.
So Peter and Ernie for, well, second. Public, oh, after public comment. We have any public comment? Yes, we've got. Could you please, Toby, thank you.
Good evening, Community Advisory Committee. It's great to see Ava staff and board members under the sun with the longer day. My name is Do-hee Kim, and I'm the campaign organizer with Local Clean Energy Alliance. I'd like to just highlight support for some of the critical bills that emerged from this discussion and the board previously in February. First, I'd like to support Assemblymember Rogers' bill around PCIA methodology and ensuring transparency and accountability for our ratepayers and load-serving entities. I'm quite surprised to hear that information request was requested 17 times and it was rejected 17 times. I think that transparency and accountability will ensure that PCIA reforms won't affect CARE-FARA bill credits that was slashed last year due to financial precarity and financial headwinds. I think Ava Community Energy deserves to have that financial tool to understand what is coming in the most accurate way possible for our ratepayers in Alameda and San Joaquin County. I also would like to support SB 1138 by Senator Padilla. I think having that load trading obligation and flexibility by the hour will also ensure affordability, flexibility for LSEs like Ava. And I think it's great that we're moving in this direction of unity when clean energy is under attack. I'd also like to highlight SB 868, Plug into the Sun Solar Act. LCA really cares about distributed energy resources, and we know that our good partners in the space, clean energy space, like Solar Rights Alliance, is sponsoring that bill. And this has actually been implemented in Utah as a bipartisan bill with great success as well. And it's been implemented in Germany for 4 years, bringing in a lot of benefits that rooftop solar can't. So I hope the movement towards balcony solar takes off this year with that bill. And just wanted to thank the AVA's team, marketing, legislative, regulatory team, for keeping track of these bills. There's one last priority I'd like to highlight, which is the DSGS Demand Side Grid Support Program. I think it's great that it's in alignment with the virtual power plant launch that AVA is considering. We really want to make sure that good state programs like DSGS is in alignment with the virtual power plant launch that AVA is considering for distributed energy resource management, making sure that extreme heat and wildfires that affect our states don't lead to power outages that affect our most vulnerable communities. So really appreciate everyone here for your work.
Thank you, Do-hee. I like to ask if anybody else would like to make a public comment. Anybody online?
There are no hands raised at this time.
Once again, we had Jim? would you-
I have a call,
Jim, go for it.
if I can. I would like to, I really appreciate this effort and I wholeheartedly support it, speak in favor of the motion. But I would like to see Ava and Cal CCA, if they can convince them to go along, to take more of an initiative to drive California's utility policy and regulations in a direction that supports CCA viability and lowers consumer electricity prices in general. So I totally support what you're doing, but I want you to do 5 times more.
Me too.
So I'm speaking in favor of the motion. I just want you to do more.
Now I'm gonna be in a conundrum. Who should I, Peter is the first. And.
It's not an amendment, it's just a comment.
Thank you. So now we can go to a vote. Thank you. So Ernie was second. and
Oh,
Peter
so
was first.
Peter Weiner was the
To
motion maker?
support. To
And
support
the
the,
second.
Sorry.
was Ernie.
Pacheco, you were the second? Okay, great. And so, roll call. Thank you. Member Landry,
Yes.
Member Weiner,
Yes.
Member Stevenson,
Yes.
Member Swaminathan,
Yes.
Member Lockman,
Yes.
Member Hernandez,
Yes.
Member Pacheco,
Yes.
Member Harper,
Yes.
Member Lutz,
Strongly, yes.
Vice Chair Buckson,
Aye.
and Chair Susan.
Strongly aye.
Motion is approved.
Very good. Thank you. Was that unanimous?
Adrian, was it unanimous?
It was unanimous.
Yes, yes, as we add this, yes, thank you.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to move to item C6, which is another California legislative preview, which is just an informational item, not an action item for the board.
Perfect. Thank you, Chair, members of the CAC. I'm back again. It was a long time. So again, I'm Sam. I lead the legislative work. This is a slightly different presentation here. While we started with showing you the 2 bills that we are ready to ask for the board support on, this is more of a look at what we are seeing in Sacramento more broadly. And we're going to try to frame the conversation on what's going on in Sacramento, what we're seeing. And then we will be coming back in April with formal recommendations for the board to consider on bills to support, oppose, support if amended, oppose unless amended. So again, this is an information item. We'll be coming back with actual bill requests next month. Start with that. While I am the subject matter on some of these, other pieces of this are fall to my team here. Kendall Downey and Dominic Faria here, who will be also speaking about some of these bills. And so you're gonna see us pass the mic between the 3 of us for the next little bit. Next slide, please. This will, as we look here, I want to show you the legislative schedule. As you can see, we are past bill introduction deadline, which was February 20th. At the end of May will be the deadline for bills to pass their House of Introduction. June 15th is the standard budget deadline. And then we get into second House at the end of August and governor's action at the end of September, just to give you a sense of where we are in the legislative year. Notice this schedule is a little bit earlier than last year, and that is because of the November election. So in an election year, everything gets pushed up just a little bit. One thing that we did not include in here, the budget trailer bills. They can happen anytime between June 15th to the end of August. So know that they will be added somewhere in there. Great, next slide. So this year, there were roughly 1,800 bills introduced into the legislature. This is in addition to a number of the bills that are carried over from last year. Though I should note that while 1,800 does seem like a lot of bills, This is actually the lowest number for a year in 20 years. So we'll take it. Of the, and I should note though, of these, 600 of the 1,800 are what we call spot bills or intensive legislature bills. These are bills that have an outline maybe of what they want to do, and maybe they're just blank. That 600 spot and intensive legislature bills, those numbers are getting smaller every day as we get more details week by week. So we are getting more information, even though we've passed the initial build deadline. Of the 1,800 bills, we spent a good amount of time, this team and others, combing through them, and there are about 80 of them that are related to our joint powers agreement, and which you can see below, which tells us really where we should be paying attention. Now, we are adding bills to this as more bills get amended. We are removing bills from this as bills get amended in the opposite direction. So the 80 is just a vague guess for now, but that's the big list. If you want to dig into the big list, at the end of your slide deck is the full list of bills that we are tracking. They're by bill number. It's a very good reference for you. If you hear a number, just Control F, find that number, and you can dig into the bill further. I won't spend time today on all 80 of them. Next slide. So we've gone from 1,800 to 80, and now we're going to go from 80 to 33. These 33 bills are bills that we are currently doing cross-functional analysis. This means that we're working with our internal AVA team, we're working with the board, we are working with the CalCCA and other CCAs around the state to understand what these bills do, what the impact could be, and whether or not they rise to the level where we should be supportive of them, opposed to them, or push to make changes in them. So that's kind of the universe we're going to talk about today, are these 33 bills. We come to these 33 bills through our legislative program, which really focuses on 5 key attributes: affordability, protecting choice, decarbonization, local development, and bill transparency. So these final 33 bills that we're talking about are the ones that really impact those spaces. So we're going to jump into the next slide. This is where we are today, 33 bills. By the time we come back to you a month from now, we'll recommend board positions on a number of bills. I don't think we have that number yet. Last year, we recommended 14 positions, if I'm remembering correctly. So probably somewhere in that ballpark. These will be bills that actually impact. There's 3 main criteria we use when determining whether or not the agency should take a perspective on a bill. Whether it directly impacts our operations or our legislative program, whether it supports the JPA's vision and it has broad-based support, and lastly, whether our perspective has specific resonance with key decision makers that could impact the legislation. We don't want to be taking positions on everything. We want to focus on the things where we can actually have an impact or where our voice will be able to drive it in a better direction. Great. Next slide. Okay, so from here, we're going to jump into the actual bills themselves, and I'm going to be passing it off to my colleagues. As you can see, we've tried to bucket it into different ways to think about it. This is sort of what is the ongoing conversation in Sacramento, and what are the various approaches that legislators are taking to that particular set of legislation. So as you can see, our biggest priorities, of course, on affordability here. And California has the second highest rates of electricity cost in the nation after Hawaii, and it has not escaped the view of the legislature. This remains the single biggest focus of the legislature. And we've sort of bucketed these out into a couple of different buckets here. Actually, before I get too far, note that there are 2 things already going on. One, of course, we're seeing a significant decrease in generation rates this year, which you've all been aware of. But also last year, the legislature passed SB 254. SB 254 was a broad affordability package, and some of those things have already come into operation. Other pieces have not. So it's sort of, while all these will be considered this year, note that they're playing into that space where there's already a conversation going on and already people who have made some attempt to drive this forward. As you can see on the left here, we have rate affordability really focused on PUC process and consideration changes. On the first, so as we look at this, is we say, okay, how can you impact the rates that people pay based on how the PUC thinks about and creates and approves rate changes for LSEs in the state. On the cost consideration side, you can see the bottom three there are cost considerations. AB 1975 is on the input side. So this is what the PUC has to consider when it looks at, it has to consider the maintenance costs when approving infrastructure spending. Versus AB 2611 and SB 924 are on the output side. So what are the final rates to the consumer? One is focused on two different issues related to that. Now above, you can see a couple of different approaches to this. You've got AB 2463, which is from Chair Petrie Norris, which would require the PUC to look at what is the correct and study the rate on return of equity. That was, that is a study bill, but that is something that she is proposing. And then 2266 from Assembly Member Schultz, which would set a single RA value for all duration and generation contracts. So again, these are all ways of getting at affordability that look at how you change what the PUC considers and what it pushes out. So the question is, how are we looking at these bills? We're looking at them, first of all, are they applied to CCAs or do they just apply to IOUs? First question that we're looking at. Second question, does it impact our rate setting and procurement autonomy? Those are key considerations. We want to make sure to maintain rate setting and procurement autonomy. Happy to dig in further, but that's sort of the general approach that we take when we look at bills. The other side of the house, in addition to this, on affordability, as you all have seen from the past report that I will shout out a report from our regulatory team on transmission and distribution costs increasing over time. And that has not escaped the eyes of the Assembly and Senate as well. And I'm going to pass over to Dominic to talk about transmission and distribution changes.
Thanks, Sam. Appreciate it. So as Sam mentioned, there's sort of a lot of ways that the legislature is trying to get at the issue of affordability. And here on the right side here, you see a few bills that have to do with trying to get at it from the lens of transmission, distribution, and the infrastructure, the physical infrastructure pieces of the grid. So as we know, major delays in building out or improving grid infrastructure is a key contributor to rising utility bills and also a threat to reliability. So when projects don't interconnect on time to serve customers, or when the grid lacks enough transmission to deliver those electrons to customers, prices go up, right? So there's many reasons why those delays happen, including supply chain constraints and backlogs, lengthy permitting requirements, or slow or outdated planning processes. So again, a few bills here that are aiming to get at that problem in those different ways. I'll highlight a few here for you. We'll start with the ones at the top there. There's AB 2493, which is really an accountability measure. It requires each investor-owned utility to retain an independent third-party auditor to review each IOU's transmission and interconnection-related submissions to this PUC and to track progress on completing those network upgrades. Next to it, we have AB 2239, which is partly accountability, but also about getting things done more quickly in certain priority areas that would allow for expedited energy project development in designated areas with limited infrastructure, and impose penalties on utilities for failing to meet energization timelines or targets. So connecting things to the grid and making sure they're online. And finally, I'll highlight AB 2516, which is from Assemblymember Petrie Norris. This is called the California Grid Manufacturing Initiative. This is aimed at addressing the supply chain delays as a part of affordability. It would allow the state to aggregate demand for critical energy components like transformers and switchboards, coordinate their procurement, and incentivize in-state manufacturing on behalf of utilities. And critically, it would also require both investor-owned utilities and publicly owned utilities to buy those components procured by the state. And I will continue on to our next bucket, and I believe it's Kendall.
Sorry. Thank you. No worries. Kendall Downey here, also on our legislative team. Thank you, Dominic and Sam. Moving on to our next item here, we have managing data center growth. So as many of us are aware, across California and nationally, there has been a rapid increase in proposed data center development. At the same time, California's electric system is already undergoing a major transition with the electrification of transportation, building decarbonization, and the retirement of fossil generation. all while affordability concerns continue to rise. In response to these concerns, policymakers are increasingly asking the same question. How do we accommodate these oncoming loads without shifting costs onto existing non-benefiting ratepayers or creating reliability risks for the grid? The bills listed here represent a spectrum of legislative approaches aimed at addressing that challenge. Legislators are trying to answer some primary concerns, such as how we dictate the threshold for what a data center is or large load is, from 20 to 75 megawatts we see here, or how we even define what a data center facility is. How do we ensure that those costs are insulated from other customers while also preserving our statewide climate goals? Policymakers and stakeholders have yet to identify the silver bullet. Across these proposals, the themes that we at AVA are paying the closest attention to are: 1, the prevention of cost shifts to existing non-benefiting ratepayers; 2, protecting grid reliability, including California climate policy goals; 3, improving transparency around large load development, including the prevention of stranded procurement risks for our load-serving entities, such as AVA or other CCAs; and 4, ensuring that these new frameworks preserve customer choice and CCA participation. So beginning with our first bucket, preventing cost shifts to existing non-benefiting ratepayers, we see this goal addressed in a couple of different bills here. We see AB 2383 by Zipper, SB 886 by Padilla, and SB 978 by Perez. We've kind of created a bucket here for creating a new data center tariff for these bills. So essentially similar in concept or in their approach is that they would necessitate the development of a new tariff for these loads. But they vary a bit from being more consumer protective versus pro-development. On one hand, we have SB 886, which includes every single cost incurred to serve these loads. However, on the other hand, we see AB 2383 take a bit more of a development-friendly approach and considers costs such as transmission upgrades as a system-wide benefit. Therefore, those costs would be shared among all quote-unquote benefiting ratepayers. On our second bucket, protecting grid reliability, once again, including California policy goals, we see this addressed in Senator Padilla's 887. This would remove the CEQA exemption for data centers, including provisions intended to prevent increases in fossil fuel consumption and require significant energy storage capacity relative to the facility's peak demand. This bill also addresses some generation and procurement costs incurred, which is a key issue in terms of forward-looking procurement in issues and obligations such as resource adequacy for agencies like AVA. In our third bucket, we have improving transparency around large load development. So as demonstrated in AB 1577 by Assemblymember Rebecca Bauer-Kahn, or later provisions of SB 978 by Senator Perez, we're trying to improve the state's visibility into where new large loads are being proposed, how quickly they may come online, and how they could affect the electric grid. In our last bucket, again, ensuring new frameworks preserve customer choice and CCA participation, we see this concern crop up several times, primarily in the last 3 bills on this slide here, as they're aiming to establish a new tariff for large loads. That language can unintentionally or heavily imply that generation would be served by an electrical corporation rather than a CCA. So we are addressing those concerns and issues not only in Rule 30, an active and ongoing PUC proceeding, but likewise in our engagement on these legislation and these 3 bills. So that's everything for this slide on data center development. Thank you. So moving forward to another large load and industrial issue, 2 additional bills that we are tracking and approaching this issue from the perspective of industrial large load decarbonization. These type of bills highlight a broader policy tension in the state that we're currently working through, which is how do we encourage large load electrification and economic development while ensuring that these costs of serving these very large loads are allocated fairly and transparently across the system. First, we see SB 943 by Senator Becker, which is primarily focused on making electrification for these industrial customers more affordable. Customers such as cement plants, steel productions, food processing, all who heavily and currently rely on fossil fuel generation. On the other hand, we see SB 1168 by Senator McNerney. This bill actually imposes a surcharge on the consumption of gas, generation used by data centers, and would use that surcharge fund to support low-income programs such as CARE and FARA. So rather than making electricity less expensive for these customers, this bill makes natural gas more expensive. So again, these are kind of 2 sides of the same coin, but different approaches to that, to reducing industrial consumption of fossil fuels. And then I'll pass it right back to my other colleague, Dominic.
Thanks, Kendall. Back to me. So stepping away from data centers, large loads for a minute, there are also some bills here that are aiming to decarbonize utility scale generation in the state just more broadly. I'll highlight a few of them for you. We have AB 1156 from Buffy Wicks that aims to make it easier to site solar and storage projects on water constrained agricultural land. And it does so by adjusting an existing solar use easement statute. So essentially the intent here is to help the state meet its clean energy goals by making it easier for farmers to temporarily convert unproductive land to solar and storage use, especially as the state faces growing water insecurity. And then you have SB 1295 taking a different approach by considering a mandatory procurement of certain resources across the state. It would require the PUC to consider strategies for the state to procure an additional 40 gigawatts of energy storage specifically by 2040 and allocate a share of that target to LSEs. And then also you have AB 2464 also from Assemblymember Wicks. It's more of a study bill. It would require the PUC to assess the role of clean, firm resources like geothermal in the context of California's 2045 carbon-free goal, and to report the legislature on strategies for procurement recommendations. So a number of ways to get about that broader issue, and we'll keep things moving to the next slide, Adrian, if you could. Almost home. We'll get there. So just talked a little bit about large scale generation, but what about resources cited on the customer side of the meter? And I think we had a public commenter mention a few of these already, but wanted to highlight some bills that have to deal with distributed energy resources, specifically through the lens of making it easier for folks to adopt certain electrical appliances. And then we also have a budget trailer bill that I'll touch on in just 1 second. So two related bills at the top here. We have AB 2612 and SB 868. SB 868 would exempt plug-in or balcony solar systems that meet certain requirements from all interconnection requirements, while AB 2612, slightly different approach, would require the State Building Standards Commission to adopt mandatory standards for electrical circuits to enable plug-in solar systems in the next code cycle. So really about making sure our buildings are ready and more prepared for those systems to be in place. SB 222, also from Senator Wiener. This deals with electric heat pump water heaters and HVAC systems, specifically by requiring local governments to streamline permitting for installing these systems and capping permit fees for the installation of those systems. Note that this bill is substantially similar to a bill we saw last year from Senator Wiener. That was SB 282. That didn't advance last year. It was something that Ava's board did take a support position on. So just wanted to note that if it looks familiar, it is definitely similar to a bill we saw last year. And finally, I'll just mention that there is a bill known as a budget trailer bill, but essentially it would move around some funding to add about 20 million more to the DSGS program, which, as mentioned, is really about essentially a state program that pays customers for reducing their energy consumption or feeding energy back to the grid when the grid is strained. So just want to call that out, that it's more about on the money side of that program. And I'll pass it over to Sam for the transportation electrification piece.
Thanks, Dominic, and thank you, Kendall, for all of your contributions. So as we talk about local development, distributed energy resources is one side of it. The other side is transportation electrification. Here we're focused on e-bikes and EV electric vehicles. Top two are two bills on e-bikes. AB 19, they're both focused on class 2 and 3 e-bikes. And just to give you some framework here, a class 2 e-bike is a throttle only bike that can go up to 20 miles per hour. A class 3 e-bike is a pedal assist, so you have to pedal, and it can go up to 28 miles per hour. Just important to get the definition here. These are two different approaches. AB 1942 from Assemblymember Bauer Cahan would require class 2 and 3 e-bikes to be registered with the DMV and plated. This is a requirement that is not currently in law. On the other side, you have SB 1167 from Senator Blakespear. This would ban advertising. It would basically essentially clarifies the definition of e-bikes and says that if you don't fall in that category, you cannot be advertised or sold as an e-bike. So it's much more on the definition clarification side of it. I should note, the Ava Bike Electric program, roughly 60% of the bicycles purchased through Ava Bike Electric have been class 2 and class 3. So 60% of the bicycles would be subject to either one of these if they are passed and signed into law. On the other side now, so that's the bicycle side. We can talk about the vehicle side. We've got two bills, one that would require major investments from IOUs. This is SB 1215 from Senator Cortese, which would require them to essentially take the number of plugs that they have installed in multifamily housing and triple it. It's essentially, that's simple. So the three programs from each of the IOUs exist. They have already mostly been built out. I think it's between 2,000 and 4,000 plugs each. This would require them to triple that over the coming years. And SB 1282 from Senator Becker is a little further reaching. It says to the Energy Commission, you got to study vehicle to grid regulations as we look at VPPs and other types of backup and safety pieces. Great. Next slide. So we're almost done, I swear. Our last priority is bill understanding and transparency. This is about dynamic rates. One bill, AB 1787, would require IOUs to offer a dynamic rate once the smart meter infrastructure is in place, versus AB 710, which would require it now, and then come up with a plan to get the metering in place in time. I should note, we do expect for AB 710 to be heavily amended in the coming weeks. So it probably won't look like this next time I talk to you. Next slide. So this is a bit of a grab bag of bills here, but these are sort of the other things we're keeping a close eye on and analyzing. For Brown Act updates, of course, we note this. This is building on SB 707 from last year. It defines a majority for meeting requirements. PUC reform. These are two different bills from Assemblymember Ransom and Assemblymember Petri Norris that are looking at different ways to increase diversity in the PUC appointment process. And then on the IOU spending restrictions, this is SB 327 from Senator McNerney. If you read this, this is identical, almost identical to SB 24 from last year. It was passed and it was vetoed by the governor due to a drafting error. So they are fixing the drafting error and running it through again. So that's moving very quickly. And lastly, as I mentioned earlier, we have 20 spot or intent of legislature bills. And I use sort of two bills here to give you a sense of what the difference is. AB 1677 is an intent of legislature bill, and it says, it is the intent of the legislature to reduce prices by 25%. Sort of leaves it at that. Versus a spot bill from Assemblymember Harabedian, which says, this is a bill about energy. And so both of those will be amended and given more details, but there are 20 or so bills in the energy space that we're keeping an eye on, because the Harabedian bill can be amended about energy, but it couldn't become, say, a healthcare bill. So we're keeping an eye on the bills that say energy. Right. Next slide. I swear we're almost done. So this is where we are, the March board meeting here. We have an informational item as well as the action item, which you've seen today. We will come back at the April board meeting with bill positions for these bills that we've outlined, as well as some small updates to our AVA legislative program that we do every year. Nothing major. So, all right, next slide. This is the legislative session, so you have some context of what the history looks like, or what the schedule looks like, excuse me, over the coming months. And then the last 10 slides or so, I will not go through all of them. They look like this. This is the full universe of those 80 bills that we talked about at the beginning. All right. And with that, I will call us done for now.
I was drinking from the fire hose.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That was great. Thank you, guys.
Just a question, are the spot and intent bills in this list too?
Yes, the spot bills are included in that list as well. And you'll note they're just noted as spot bill or intent of legislature bill.
Okay.
I'll note that some of the bills on that larger list have been amended since this presentation was uploaded as well. And so if you have questions about those, we can try to answer them.
So I imagine things are changing daily.
That is correct. Yeah. Moving quickly.
I'd like to open this up for public comment. Please step forward.
Okay, hello. My name is Betsy Bauman, and I'm an intern at the local Clean Energy Alliance. I wanted to comment on AB 1577 and the importance of this bill and environmental justice. The environmental impacts of AI data centers on communities are long-lasting and incredibly harmful. Although we cannot fully prevent the rise of AI, we can start to work with the growth of these corporations by incorporating the voices of people who will be suffering the consequences of pollution. I believe there is a dire need of establishing a process for the owners of data centers to submit information regarding their data centers. This brings accountability and the opportunity for the public that will be harmed by the data center in their neighborhoods. Some of the benefits that stand out to me from this bill are as follow. Ensuring these costs are isolated and independent from ratepayers starts with accountability and clear disclosure from the owners of these data centers. Not only does this information have the opportunity to protect the electric grid, but we can continue to protect the people. That's it. Thank you for your time, guys.
Thank you, Betsy. Oh, Betsy, sorry. I request for more public comment. Is anybody? Are there any questions online or comments from the public?
There are no hands raised at this time.
Okay. Anybody in the room? Peter?
Yeah, I really appreciate the presentation very much and winnowing 1,488 bills or whatever down to 80 and down to 33. I can tell you that before the legislature imposed limits on their own ability to introduce bills, there were 4,000 or 5,000 bills a year. So, but I'd like to comment a little bit on the types of bills we're talking about. I would like to see AVA focus a bit more, possibly than it even does now, on the provision of transmission and on facilitating generation. Supply and demand still work. And when there isn't enough supply and demand is higher, as it now is, we get increases in price. And certainly the PUC is complicit in that and simply a fan of the IOUs. But I think the CCAs can focus on facilitating transmission, whether it be through competitive processes or planning to take some of it away from the PUC or whatever, and on generation. I think AB 1156, which you noted, does that because it's trying to use land that is no longer good for farmland for generation and to make it easier rather than have it be subject to Williamson Act contracts. I confess I know what the bill is. But I think there may be more possibilities for that. Possibilities of streamlining how we do things that don't cut out environmental protections, but cut down timing. Because at the moment, one of the things we do with any of our agencies is we defer to them in terms of timing. And part of the problem with that is timing is not always what we need. It just takes too long to do things. So I would just encourage us to focus on those bills as part of the package of bills you're considering in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Ernie?
So thank you to the whole team. Again, excellent presentation, very clear. I got 5 or 6 questions. So I'll just, first question. So when is the last day that there can be a gut and amend or a spot bill can get new language? If you could remind me.
So there's a rule that all bills have to lay on the desk for 72 hours before they can be voted upon. So I guess if you've got the agreement of the legislative leaders, it could be 3 days before the final deadline.
Okay, thank you. And I haven't reviewed any of these bills. I'm interested in the data center bills, as you may have guessed from my constant comments. I'm going to look at all these. Thank you for making it easier for me. I'm wondering if you have reviewed these to some degree. Well, first of all, I like how you broke it down, like affordability, which of course the legislature, they want to get reelected and they're terrified of a MAGA movement or a Prop 13 kind of movement or whatever. So they're focusing on affordability. Data centers are a significant driver of increase in electricity. I see you didn't put the data centers in that. I understand you're trying to make it simple. I'm curious. So, sorry, question. Are you also the legislative team that runs the halls in Sacramento on the bills, or are you just doing in-house analysis or?
So we have a legislative representation, a
Mhm.
firm up in Sacramento that runs the halls daily, but I'd say we are personally up there every week or two. So it's a combination of their great efforts and then we're on the in-house side.
Right on. I figured that you guys did have some direct face-to-face interaction with them. I'm curious, and you may not feel free speaking freely on all this, and that's fine. I'm going to ask you, and you can answer how you're going to answer. To what degree does the Energy Committee or the legislature looking at data center growth as a energy price increase factor? Are they cognizant of it? Are they thinking about it that way?
Yeah, I would say that there are a lot of different conversations ongoing right now in the committee. I think Kendall did a great job of explaining there are different approaches to how to address what the next steps are. I wouldn't say that there is yet a vision from the legislature for what the future of data centers is in the state of California. And what you're seeing on that slide is evidence of numerous competing visions for how much we should ride the wave, how much we should push back, how it should be structured. So I'd say it's definitely a sort of an ongoing and a push me, pull you conversation.
Right on. So as for the data center or managing data center, I think you had that broken down there. So I love Zbur for some stuff he's done in the past, but it's sounding like, I'm going to look at these bills. He's being a little more developer friendly of these bills. Is that, you think like a hard one, or is that a hard position of his that he's pro data center, just wants to manage it a little as compared to maybe some of the other authors?
I can't speak to the assembly member specifically. We have worked with his office and others.
Sure.
And I would say that these are, in the legislative process, these are first bids.
Mhm.
Things will
And there's a
change.
long way to go, yes.
Long way yet
Right
to
on.
go.
And again, I appreciate that you're going to be comfortable saying so much. Also, a bill that I thought was a good template, even to be strengthened though, was the Oregon House Bill HB 3546, which I brought up before. Of the bills you guys have reviewed, does any of these kind of capture the full suite of the Oregon bill? Or what would you say is the strongest bill you guys are looking at in
Yeah.
comparison to the Oregon bill?
I'm gonna pass that to Kendall, who's dug in much deeper.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great question. I wouldn't say that I could identify a particular strong bill, given that there is so much uncertainty about how much of this load will actually materialize and come online come 2027 and beyond. Beyond that, SB 886, I would say is relatively similar to HB. I haven't reviewed that bill in a while since you had actually flagged that. And I think that the rest of the nation, along with Oregon, is responding to those drastic price increases and trying to ensure that those costs are insulated. So reflected in that, you could see that in 2383, 886, but also SB 978, given that all three of those bills are aimed to create a separate tariff and insulate those costs. Again, different flavors, but 886 does establish that 20 megawatt threshold as well. And so again, it's interesting to see how they actually look at what defines a data center, how big they might be, and how we insulate those costs properly.
Thank you. That's good. Thanks.
Indira.
I have several questions. One of them is about the water. Are any of these bills, I'm talking about data centers as well. By the way, very helpful, super interesting, and it's not dry, you make it interesting.
Trying our best.
But so, I mean, when we're looking at these bills, we must have allies in the world of water that would be supporting these. So I just want to say, please follow those guys like the water boards and all that. I'm sure they don't want us just using up all the water. But a question about the data centers too. So is there any legislation that's talking about what we're storing? Because it seems to me I have a million emails and they're being stored in a data center. So is there any mention of like how much data? Do we delete them in 5 years? You know, I mean, because this is an endless thing. Was there anything that mentioned about that in any of these bills?
So I'll tell you that there is a ongoing conversation in Sacramento around privacy and storage around data centers, just what it is. We are not tracking those bills. We are focused on the bills that relate to data centers with energy. Though that conversation is going
I mean, it's
on.
related to energy too, right?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, rest assured that conversation is happening,
Okay, gotcha.
but our focus is on the energy specific pieces of it.
And then I have a specific question about the SB 887 Padilla's bill. So this is saying it will require CEQA for data centers, right?
Right.
And so in that bill, does that take into account like environmental justice issues and whether a data center is put into a neighborhood, you know, right next door to people?
Yeah, I'd have to better review the language again with recent amendments for 887. The specific portion that removed the CEQA exemption was only recently put into text. So again, I'm happy to kind of take that question back for you and ensure that those questions are addressed. But thank you though.
Thank you. I have a question or two. Ariel is who presented last month, mentioned that a lot of the projected load will be not necessarily on AI or data centers. That the load will be having to do with additional electrification of buildings.
Yep.
And EVs as well. So, you know, I was trying to pay attention as far as any bills that affected the added burdens of EVs. I love EVs. I have EV myself, and how we would, you know, consider that in legislation and promoting it or controlling it or managing it.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing the same thing, Chair.
Right.
I mean, the electric vehicle demand is dwarfing the data center load as expected. I think where I would say that there's a slightly different philosophical approach from the legislature is that because data centers are concentrated and new, there's this push to do more work around this potential tariff or whatever it might be. Versus the approach on the EV side tends to be more around how are we encouraging uptake of EVs and how are we integrating that into building codes and requirements and other pieces of that. So one is sort of viewed as and this is just purely from the legislature, something new that is more concentrated, more specific locations versus more broad-based and something we want to encourage.
I just didn't want to get too caught up in the, not that it's not noise. It's very important for us to pay attention to AI. It's just that the East Bay is not really considered as much when it comes to East Bay and maybe in San Joaquin Valley, maybe more of a consideration for land and data center projects. But just making that mention, just because it was just coming off Ariel's presentation. Okay, with that, yes, indeed, David. Oh, Davis.
Thanks. Appreciate the presentation. I had one quick follow-up on AV 2239, which was about process changes for quote infrastructure constrained energization areas. And I was just wondering if we've seen any kind of specific mapping that indicates that like San Joaquin County or other rural parts of AVA service territory might be included in that. So that has some pretty big implications, especially if there's provisions around enabling over the fence power sales, like streamlining permitting. So just curious if you followed conversations on that one at all.
Yeah, good question. I haven't seen any specific mapping about like where those areas would be in particular. It's possible that there could be some in San Joaquin County. The definition is pretty vague for the infrastructure constrained energization area that's defined in the bill text. So it's pretty vague right now, but we'll definitely try to get some more information as soon as we can on that.
Awesome, thank you. And if I could ask one more quick follow-up on 1168, the McNerney bill on surcharging gas generation by data centers. Do you know if that's proposing that surcharge to all data centers currently in operation, like retroactively, or if that's only new data centers?
I believe this would apply to all data centers classified as, once if defined as a data center, this would be ongoing set on from January 1st, 2027 and on. So any facility classified as data center consuming fossil fuel would then be charged with that surcharge on their bill. If
Gotcha.
this were to
Okay.
be, if this were to go into effect, that is.
Sounds good. Thank you for your diligence, and yeah, I hope you have good stress management practices. 'Cause it's a lot of legislation to track and make recommendations on. So appreciate you.
Thank you very much. That was a very good presentation, and I'm going to last call for any comments or questions. None online. Oh, Cynthia?
This was an excellent presentation. In general, I know last month the presenter said that we could have approximately 5 to 7 data centers potentially in Alameda County. I am in general, I am concerned about data centers, and I'm concerned about water usage. Apparently, there's a lot of water usage, and I'm concerned about additional costs to customers while these data centers are being built. So to the extent that we can have scrutiny on the development of data centers through legislation, and also effects on climate change. And I've also heard that in other states, they are using nuclear energy to power some of the, they have revisited using nuclear energy to power some of these data centers, which, you know, is very troubling to me. But my concern is that we monitor the legislation regarding the expansion of data centers and mitigate any costs to our customers. And yeah, I know that's not saying anything specific about the legislation, but that's at least where I stand on this, because there are going to be unintended consequences from these centers that I think we need to be prepared for. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia, for synthesizing the concerns that we all have concerning the additional growth of data centers. It is an unknown and new. So making sure that everything goes right, and the onus is placed where the onus belongs on, as far as rates and management and use of the correct fuels. Well, I'm going to put a close now to this item, and I would like to move on to the next item, which is the ad hoc committee updates. We had some. Indira?
So I wanted to, do we need public comment? Any public comment on this also?
Oh,
we had
we have some public comment. Do we?
Yeah,
Oh,
sorry.
geez.
I didn't. Okay. I just wanted to, there was a handout that we put in the package just at the very end, and I'm just going to read it for speed sake. So the Energy Affordability Ad Hoc Committee met with Handry Henjo and Paul Fenn from Local Power about the CCA 3.0. And it was I think we met for about an hour, didn't we? Anyway, the focus was his focus, or what the focus of CCA 3.0 is, on the demand side reductions at the point of demand and ownership of these technologies to make them more affordable to all people, and to create an energy ecosystem that offers dividend paying distributed energy resource ownership shares to local residents. That piqued my interest when he was contacting us about that, because if you're starting to talk about ownership shares for local residents, I thought that was really interesting. So then they made a presentation, and they stated that the CCAs, or they complimented the CCAs on being highly successful in developing renewable energy. And they put a number, which you can see on the screen. But since this power is mostly centralized generation, it neglects demand side reductions necessary for climate action. That was his concern, and the reason why he came up with the CCA 3.0 idea. And although the CCAs are successful in achieving physical change, energy users are left in the passive role, and the system has become bureaucratic, reproducing many of the practices of corporate energy. For CCA, I'm just saying that's not necessarily our opinion. This is what their Local Power's opinion was. So for CCAs to reach full potential, they need to have customer ownership, demand reduction, reduced market and rate exposure, local jobs, local economic development, electrification, natural gas, and vehicle fuels, elimination of sewer and landfill waste, greenhouse gas emissions, and reduced dependency on transmission. So the 3.0 model uses the design principles of distributed energy resources, including interoperability, to eliminate the need for grid export. The on-site generation and energy storage and smart appliance and energy efficiency are part of that design. So I went through the slides, and there were really 6 things that they talked about, what their package included. And the reason we're presenting this is to give you a background of potential further discussions that we might have about this through the lens of energy affordability. So the first one is that all energy, and that is talking about the interoperability between heat, vehicle, waste systems, opting out of enrollment, that aggregation of electricity and natural gas meters in a basic service, structured finance like green bonds and pre-qualified local bank loans, shared ownership, facilitation of co-investment options for all users, user-owned voluntary distributed energy resource ownership options for all users, and shared use, facilitation of sharing by neighbors. There are examples of this that they are doing in Ithaca, New York, and Ann Arbor, Michigan. And in the handout, you'll see that there's 2 links to articles about what they're doing. Our group, it was very interesting. We had a lot of questions. It wasn't that clearly presented, but it seemed like something to explore, because it seems like CCAs need something else to maybe leverage and make sure that our resources aren't just given off to the IOUs, or we don't spend all our time arguing with the IOUs over transmission distribution. So there were questions, and this is a list of some of the questions that Ernie and Davis and others at the group asked, kind of really focused on, and we will ask this in our next meeting, like, how do you turn the tables on the IOUs? It seemed like the IOUs own the microgrids, and there's restrictions on doing microgrids, but that was one of their things that they kept discussing. We didn't get any idea about what the anticipated barriers are. And some of the things that they were mentioning that we should focus on in our investigation is to look at what IOUs don't control, and that might help the CCAs position themselves. I don't know if that's the right word, but looking at like nanogrids, thermal loops, EV, appliance automation, load management systems. And then there was no discussion about revenue, what it costs to build a microgrid, and how to get people to cooperate and invest, and what can be done apparently with electron sharing, which is currently illegal. So I know it's a lot and you can read it, which is probably much better than me saying it all. But so we're going to get together as a committee and discuss this more to really flesh out really what he was really talking about. Because he just hit us with so many things. And a lot of it was stuff that he didn't really seem to know us, because it was all about climate change, and which we all, of course, that's why we're doing what we do. But he did have some really interesting points that are really worth evaluating. And so our next steps are to meet and then hopefully put together a presentation, about rationale, benefits, costs, and opportunities to overcome current hurdles that we're having right now with community and local governance of electrons. That came from yours, Mickey. But so I don't know if it was too much, but if you have any questions, we can all try to answer, all of us that were there on it. Was that too much?
Well, I would think that something like 4 to 5,000 bills and synthesizing it down into
Well, I
80
didn't do as
bills
good a
and
job
then
as you guys. What can I
34
say?
bills.
But I think it's a really good.
We have a lot to do.
Well, it acts to me as a catalyst for us to think about some things that we were thinking about and kind of moving in a different direction. So I really appreciate hearing from him, and it was really a good meeting, even though we have a long way to go, I think, to learn that.
Yeah, and that's where we are. We're basically, this is very new to us, CCA. Yes, go ahead, Peter.
Well, one of the things that was mentioned was local power grids. And certainly local power grids could be a benefit to AVA, a benefit to communities. And while some of these are market issues, because there are, just as an example, there are home developers who would be very willing to develop all solar microgrids with their developments, but they can't because of the over the fence rule. Public Utilities Code Section 218, I believe. And I don't understand why CCAs are not taking action to try to overcome that. I realize that the IOUs feel this is part of their profit picture and that the development of local power grids would reduce their profits. But that can't be all that we're concerned about. And I understand also that local power grids might want to still benefit from the grid, just like people who have solar energy do. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't have them and be able to share them. If you could put up the equivalent of community solar project at the local park or landfill or other place that is possible, and power 100 homes in the neighborhood and have those homes be responsible, get much lower power. But we can't because of the ban on power grids. So is there anything that AVA or other CCAs could do? Because otherwise there's really no organized component in the legislature that's going to go after it.
Well,
That's a question to AVA staff.
I was looking at Sam and I
I
think.
was too.
Sam could potentially, I'm going to add on to his question, but hopefully I don't butcher it. But and that would be something like the balcony solar, right? Balcony solar somehow bypassed the grid interconnection, or is being considered to be bypassed, and in some communities have already been bypassed. So maybe it's a first step, that type of thing. So would that be, did I butcher it, Peter?
Yeah.
I mean, the honest truth is I can't speak to our programmatic approach. I think our work from the legislative team is focused on the legislative positions that we see. And so that's why we are tracking it 868 and those other on balcony solar. There is not a community microgrid bill this session. There had been a community solar bill last session to reinstate the community solar program. That was unsuccessful. So we do see, I would say we see this conversation in the legislative context. It does occur. But at least as of this session, we're not seeing as much focus on this space. Right now, the legislature is really focused on affordability. And so that's really where we're seeing the bulk of the legislative work around that side of the house.
Go ahead.
So I've been following San Francisco's setting up their municipal utility district and one of the big concerns I keep reading about is that if people start dropping out of, say, PG&E or the IOUs, that the rates will go up for everybody, right? So, and I think that would have to be a legislative thing if this keeps happening. I mean, I don't know if San Francisco will be successful, but we do have, municipalities that have their own utility districts. And I mean, it seems like a cost benefit analysis to know how many can we, I hope PG&E has done this, but how many can they lose without raising the prices of our rates more? So, I mean, I think from a legislative perspective, that has a advantage on which direction AVA would go to looking at microgrids or nanogrids, that's come up in our energy affordability committee discussions is creating municipal utility districts.
I would point you to SB 870, which is Senator Wiener's bill on municipalization advancement for this year. Obviously, there is an existing process for municipalization that SMUD went through, that South San Joaquin Irrigation District is going through. So it does happen, and Senator Wiener's bill is intended to speed up that process for San Francisco specifically.
I think that's one of the things that kind of sent us why we were kind of, I don't know if the right word was hesitant, but this discussion of the CCA 3 was a very interesting conversation, but it's not clear how it would be implemented and what the impacts would be. And that's the kind of thing we really want to flush out.
Yeah, I was actually a little disappointed in how San Jose's decision was in regards to breaking away from the PG&E grid. Let's see what happens with San Francisco. Are there any public comments about CCA 3 or future CCA implementations? Thank you. We'll have Jessica.
Yeah, I just want to name Jessica Tovar with Local Clean Energy Alliance. What might not be obvious is the whole point of the local development business plan that our organization fought for through the Board of Supervisors back in 2016, which was technically a roadmap for how to do community choice 3.0. I mean, there's so many different names for it, but the intent was to do a lot more investments for the agency to buy power from a lot of small efforts on the ground throughout the community and enable the community to generate clean energy at a local level, incentivize them, but also aid them in creating more ownership models within the communities that the agency serves. And earlier on in the agency, there was an attempt to sell power from City of Hayward. They had did some solar installation, and they actually approached this agency when it was East Bay Community Energy to purchase the power, and the agency did not. And so what ended up happening was the city ended up selling that power to PG&E. And so I think here we are where this agency has matured. We should be moving in the direction of actually implementing these kinds of investments in our community, both for the benefits that it will bring to our community, but also to strengthen the agency moving forward. Because if we don't actually do this, this is just really a waste of time if you're repeating the same patterns that the investor-owned utilities are have already done. And the whole point of community choice, like really at the end of the day, is not only lower rates, but actual investments. And And in the long term, that is what's actually going to control the price of electricity, is not having to depend completely on the market. And so just to bring it home, this is what the local development business plan is all about. It might be an old document at this point, but it's still very much relevant. And I hope that we don't lose sight of that and move forward, continue to move this agency towards that direction. Otherwise, we're running out of time here. It really is a climate crisis. Clean power to the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you for the reminder. Are there any further public comments? Any comments online?
There are no hands raised at this time.
Any comments in the room? Well, I'd like to close the conversation there, to be continued.
Vicky,
Oh, yes.
could we follow up on why East Bay Community Energy didn't buy the energy from City of Hayward?
I don't know. Is there anybody in the room or online that can answer that? Okay. Okay. All right. So, I'll follow up with you on that. At this time, I'd like to close on the ad hoc committee update and move on to item C8, which is the CAC member and staff announcements, including requests to place items on future community advisory committee meeting agendas. Do we have any public comment on that? Here. Do we have any hands raised? Jim?
Like an update on the process of revising the RFP for the programs roadmap process, the one that got derailed because of ice, ran off the road because of black ice, I guess. Just what's going on with that? What's the status? Yeah. There was talk about revising Ava's policy. Has that gone any farther than talk? And a separate and mostly completely different topic, I'd like to request that the CAC investigate holding a meeting in Stockton or Livermore or Fremont, the farther parts of Ava's territory where the public has not been very involved recently. I'm not sure I want to travel there, but it seems like the right thing to do.
It does.
Hold the meetings there.
That would be a good discussion. We'll put that at the forefront of potentially the next meeting. Thank you very much for the reminder, Jim. Are there any other agenda items or questions, comments? Ed? Nice
Just
to
a quick comment. Yeah, speaking to Jim's point about going to other locations, I was talking to a planning commissioner in Stockton, just trying to help him become more aware of Ava's activities. I think some people know about it, but just being able to get in those community rooms, those conversations, and really bolster Ava's presence and what they are, what they provide for the community, and how much more we want to do for the expanded territory is important around affordability and the investment in programs. I know that we have staff, there's limited resources, but making sure there's places we can show up and say, hey, we're having a meeting here today. Like, oh, what's that about? So getting local coverage, I think, is important, other than the e-blast, because once you mentioned, Chair, that there was an email, like, let me look for that email about the nonprofit status, because it just, so I think, face-to-face communications at local events are critical, where Ava staff can help. And then as advisory members, show up with Ava and invite others to come learn more, so we get that clean part of the people that our friends in the room say, and I agree to. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ed. That I'm certainly willing to travel to Stockton. Yes, go
Chair,
ahead.
just was going to let you know, on the next month, we will be back, the three of us will be back on next month's
Okay.
CAC to
Okay.
discuss the position recommendations.
Okay.
So we'll be on that agenda for next month.
And well, in the future, yes, let's meet in Stockton. Hopefully.
As the only Stockton rep in the room, I support this. I just wanted to say that on record. Thank you guys for your interest in
Oh,
coming out east a little bit more.
But Davis will have to host us as well. So you have to tell us where to go for dinner, who they should DoorDash to, what's the best location. So you have to lay the land there, help us land safely to a good spot for those who want to come out and visit you in person.
You got it. I'm on it.
Thank you, sir.
And don't forget the tour of the town.
Sounds good. Take you to the best taco trucks.
Sounds great.
Well, with that, we're ready to adjourn, and it is currently 8:02, 8:03, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Right.